Hello, everybody. Welcome to Ford Field in Detroit. I'm Jim Owczarski along with Pete Dougherty from PackersNews.com. High above the scene of the 31-23 Packers loss to the Lions. Drops them to 2-2-1 on the year. And, you know, some headlines, but I guess generally, Pete, what are your just takeaways?
Pretty poorly played game by the Packers.
Yeah.
I know, obviously if Mason Crosby makes his kicks, it's a different game. Now, you can't just throw those points on the scoreboard and say they win because Detroit plays differently.
Right.
And is there any reason to think the Packers are going to get a stop if Detroit really needed to score? Are they going to stop them? I mean, I'd put my money on Detroit there, but it's still a whole different game. So just a bad performance offensively, defensively. The numbers by the end looked okay, but bad game for Aaron Rodgers, lost 2 fumbles. Just kind of the same old with this team, up, down, struggle around. But at the end of the season, they're probably still in the playoffs, but, they run out of gas, and that's it.
Yeah, it's you're right. So we'll start with Mason Crosby. 5 missed kicks, 4 field goals. Yeah, you're right, Pete. To just put the points on doesn't quite work. Really, the first miss ended up leading to a Lions touchdown. But other than that, it was just sort of the Packers forced punts after that. So really, the missed points hurt, but it also just kind of stifled any momentum. And let's be real, Pete. Packers drive stalled out at the 23, the 24, the 24. They just, again, could not get to the end zone.
People asking about McCarthy on the hot seat. Yeah, I don't think there's any getting around that. It's probably going to take a good playoff run for him to keep his job. I wonder, it's all up to what Mark Murphy thinks. It's his call.
Right.
He's running the football operations now. It is still, we're 5 games in. The Minnesota Vikings are sitting there with the same record as the Packers. I'm assuming that the Vikings held on. They just recovered an onside kick. But 2-2-1 feels a lot different when you just beat the Philadelphia Eagles in Philadelphia than losing here at Detroit.
But Buffalo won. So, you got to feel better about... No.
Yeah, how does that happen?
Yeah, right? No, look, obviously, Packers fans...
Playoffs, are you kidding me?
You guys are a little upset. But look, it is... David Bakhtiari said in the locker room, look, what we want is ahead of us, and that is true. They're not 2-3 or 2-5 and hoping for... there are games ahead, but I think as Packers fans out there know, you got the Rams in New England and a short week at Seattle coming up here end of October, November.
Yeah, I thought the schedule gets tough.
Definitely.
What I'm trying to figure out is I'm trying to remember what it felt. They were 1-2 that year when Rodgers said relax, and I remember thinking at that time, 3 games in, this feels different than then. I think because the tougher schedule coming up, they were 4-6 in 16, and then he said run the table, and they went to the championship games. But then they had a fairly favorable schedule down the stretch there, which they don't have, like you said, coming up at Los Angeles, at New England. Those are 2 really tough games at Seattle. So this feels a little different. This feels like they're struggling and groping to find out who they are. It doesn't mean they can't, but this just feels a little different. Right.
There's a lot of questions about Aaron Jones, of course, and lack of a run game. Generally speaking, if you're down 14-0 after 1 quarter, 24-0 after 2.
He hardly played the second half.
Yeah, it's hard to run the ball, but I guess to their point, Pete, he is a dynamic playmaker.
Was 7 carries enough in the first half for him?
Probably not.
I'm thinking if I'm them now, and
especially how hard he did run.
Didn't write this in the column, but there just wasn't room for it. But, the slow starts. It's just 3 slow starts in 5 games.
Right.
Probably time to have him out there in the first series.
I think so. I think so. He was in pretty quickly, but they... And look, I thought despite the mounting deficit, tried to run the ball, but it gets away from you at a certain point. And again, slow starts. 14, 24 points. This is 3 out of the 5 weeks.
So to that point, somebody's asking how much of that is Rodgers not practicing very much.
This was his first full week since week 1.
Yeah, and actually, I think he still took
Wednesday off.
He took Wednesday off.
So Thursday, Saturday.
But practiced Thursday, Saturday, and they took him off the injury report. Doesn't mean he's not injured, but it just meant that there was 0 chance he wasn't going to play. And it wasn't affecting how much he could practice. It's got to be a factor because he's been missing throws that he normally makes. But, I'm thinking back even in that Chicago game in the first half. Didn't he miss a throw or 2 in the first half of that? So maybe, he's just missing throws right now.
Yeah. And, you know, some people have brought up the Mike Pettin defense. And where's that change coming from, coming off a shutout? And look, I mean, we wrote this. Tramon Williams was cautioned the shutout a little bit. Mike Pettin did to a degree as well, saying, hey, we kind of know who we played. We hope to build off that, but you saw a lot of the same issues. A touchdown, a 46-yard touchdown was called back.
Yeah.
A 50-yard completion down on the Packers 8 was called back. So those deep problems still existed.
It looked like Clinton Dix gave up another touchdown, right? The one over the middle.
Right.
They were inside the 10, I think, and it looked like they were in zone, and King passed the guy off,
right.
and Clinton Dix almost
drifted the other way.
Yeah.
Right.
So there are definitely coverage issues. The young corners. You know, King had a rough time today.
Right. So just to recap, people catching up, I am Jim Owczarski. I'm the newest Packers beat writer. Joined the Packers news team.
Feels like you've been here forever already.
Yeah,
Jim.
It's been since week 1, but I am new to Facebook Live. Ryan Wood is attending a wedding.
He is.
So we are here for you. So that's who I am after this 31-23 loss.
So next week, San Francisco, no Jim Garoppolo.
Right.
If they're 3-2-1 going into the bye, do you think that's Aaron Nagler?
Yeah, there he is.
Good to see you, Aaron. I was reading y'all on Twitter today, so I know what your feelings about what happened today.
Right. So I mean, one of my initial takeaways after the game, Pete, was almost calling next week a must-win, just knowing that it's a short bye because of the Monday night at LA, come back to Green Bay for a quick turnaround to New England. I mean, not that they can't win, of course they can win. But it doesn't bode well when you have to do that cross-country jet setting.
I can't disagree with you. And, you know, it's pretty rare when you'd have what you'd consider close to a must-win 6 weeks into the season.
Right.
But with what is coming up on the schedule, that's the truth. The pass rush still, I noticed somebody talking about that. I mean, it ain't there. And this was totally foreseeable in the offseason.
It was.
And we've talked about Khalil Mack over the last month ad nauseum.
Why are you going to keep doing that to these people, Pete?
Because that's what they're thinking.
No, they are thinking that. That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I think Blake Martinez had a sack, but it was, Matthew Stafford gave himself up. I think there was another one like that. I mean, you just didn't see. And look, Stafford is not Josh Allen. He gets the ball out.
Yeah. Life's a lot different when you play against a real quarterback.
Right. And you started. I interrupted you there to reintroduce myself. It was, you mentioned Jair Alexander didn't play. Kevin King had a terrible day before leaving early with a laceration on his face.
Jackson, not the greatest day either.
He
with
struggled.
The penalties, and he had coverage a couple. And King had a couple good coverages, but no interceptions, which they needed. They needed a game-turning play and never got it from their defense. That's how that defense is going to. Because that defense isn't going to. Well, if they need a stop, there's a good quarterbacks. They're not going to get it against a good. If Drew Brees needs a score, if Tom Brady needs a score, Kirk Cousins showed if he needed a score. They're probably going to get it against this defense. So they're going to have to, somewhere in there, turn the ball over. This team is a team that needs to play from ahead. Right,
and look, I mean, we're seeing more Mason Crosby makes kicks, and that's true. But again, he's kicking 5 field goals again.
Yeah.
I mean, this team still hasn't topped the 24-point effort in the second half of Week 1. So if you remember, 7 points against Minnesota came via punt return. So it's 22, 17, 22, and 23 points. I mean, and Aaron Rodgers, hobbled or not, he's been out there.
I think Brian's being sarcastic. Thank God we didn't get Khalil Mack. He says of his Green Bay Packers.
I think so, too.
Yes, Kenny Clark did come. In fact, he was back for that goal line stand in that same series. So they didn't have any injury announcements after the game.
Right, yeah. Kevin King, I think, was the only one. Nick Perry tweaked an ankle, but he was available to talk post-game, so I don't think that was something that would knock him out, but there's another guy. I guess you have to see how that will affect him.
People already want to talk about coaches getting fired and everything.
That's what happens.
No playoffs does he get fired. I think that's almost a given.
It is. Look, when you only have a year left on your deal, and the front office, whatever the silos may be, Pete, I mean, there still was change in that front office. And look, when you're an offensive head coach with a quarterback like that, you're going to have to score points eventually.
So I'm starting to get, I don't know how fans feel about this, but we're 5 weeks in, and A lot of hating on Don Capers the last Capers the last 4 years or so. Maybe Dom Capers was not the problem with this defense, and maybe it's still mostly a personnel thing.
Yeah, I mean, there were clearly deficiencies that they tried to address, either by trading or releasing guys, drafting others. They didn't make the trade, obviously, but by signing like a Muhammad Wilkerson, for instance. But you're right. So, I mean, clearly there are some personnel issues.
Paul's weighing. I missed your last name, Paul, but he's weighing in as the voice of reason. Everybody's panicking too early. San Francisco, then the bye, 3-2-1, chance to regroup. All those things are true. I'm just wondering where the playmaking is going to come from.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean people won't emerge, and maybe those defensive backs will start getting interceptions as the season goes on. But not much of it. And last week it was just a young quarterback who was way overmatched.
Which they get again at home.
Yeah.
Evan, you mentioned the offensive line. Actually, I mean, I thought they pass protected and run blocked pretty well.
The pass protection was great.
Yeah, Aaron actually admitted post-game that he held on to the ball too long in a lot of instances. They did. I mean, and look, they came in knowing Detroit's sacks came from second, third, fourth efforts.
Yeah, McCarthy said that in his press conference.
I mean, and that's really where Rodgers getting hit from the blind side a couple times and being forced to throw. I mean, we'll have to go back and look and see if receivers were open or if he just had checkdowns he overlooked. Yeah. We'll have to see. But I think overall the O-line did a good job today.
Ton of Aaron Jones questions still rolling in.
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is there. I mean, Jamal Williams, statistically, Pete, I think had a decent day.
And he picks up the blitz and all of that, but 33 is so much better with the ball in his hands.
At this point, they're not scoring.
I'll bet he's in the starting. He's out there during the first series, if not the first snap. He's out there during the first series.
Yeah, he is a playmaker. I think he can catch the ball well enough. We saw some questions about Jimmy Graham. Yet again, you and I were talking all game about how Detroit just beat him up. Anytime he was online, defensive linemen hit him hard.
At least one guy take a shot, sometimes a second guy.
Sometimes two or three. So I don't know. We kind of wondered this week, Pete, about do the Packers need to scheme him open or scheme him into some matchups? I think they can still do more of that. But then again, he also dropped a touchdown pass.
Yeah,
I mean, it would have been a nice catch.
Yeah.
It would have been, but I think he'll tell you if it's through his hands.
Those are the catches that they brought him here to make.
Exactly.
Special players make those plays. So was that ended up being a field goal trip, a field goal miss trip?
Yeah, exactly right.
Which many drives ended with field goal misses.
Right. Yeah.
We'll take maybe 2 or 3 more questions, and then we still have a little more work to do, so we'll get back to that.
Yeah. So as you continue to roll through this, of course, PackersNews.com. Subscribe to the app, download it.
Yes.
You can read all of us.
I think it's $5.95 a month, I believe.
I think it's worth it.
Yeah, it's a pretty good deal. So will things get better with the? Someone's asking, will things get better with the defense? New coordinator.
Right.
Is it going to be better 6 weeks from now?
I
mean, theoretically, yes.
Theoretically, yes, if they stay healthy. I do think these guys can cover. I mean, you're going to have Marvin Jones and Kenny Golladay and Golden Tate presented issues. Not every team has that sort of firepower, or a Theo Riddick coming out of the backfield, or even Kerryon Johnson, I thought, to cut the ball really well. Not every team has those playmakers.
Jared Cook, I agree the Packers missed Jared Cook.
I think so.
Any thoughts? Someone was asking if you had any thoughts on St. Brown.
I thought he showed well a little bit. I mean, a big catch early led to a field goal opportunity, and of course the catch and run late in the game was impressive. He only had a few targets. I guess we'll have to see, though, where was he and Marquez Valdes-Scantling when Rodgers held the ball too long?
Yeah.
Because at some point they were on the field and he didn't throw it to him.
They have rules and guidelines about what they're supposed to do when he breaks the pocket and where they're supposed to go. Valdes-Scantling had the out early, which would have been a first down, but he didn't get his other foot down. Just rookie didn't do his toe tap. But as the game went on, Rodgers kept coming. He made some good catches and he made some bigger plays. But one of the things, you just can't get down 24-0 in this league. It doesn't matter who you're playing.
Exactly. Right.
Why don't we wrap it up, Jim?
Yeah, so, again, thank you all for watching, participating. We appreciate it. From Ford Field in Detroit, for Pete Dougherty, I'm Jim Owczarski. We'll talk to you next time.
See ya.